Hello, welcome to the School of Psychology webinar. It's very nice to be here. My name is Patrick Rosenkranz. I'm the undergraduate degree program director and a lecturer in the School of Psychology. I'm here with some of my one colleague and some students. Would you like to introduce yourself, everybody?
Hi, I'm Amy Fielden. I'm also working in the School of Psychology and I'm Stage 1 Director.
Hi, I'm Vito. I'm a Stage 2 student.
And I'm Haley, and I'm a Stage 1 student.
So the purpose of this webinar today is to answer any questions that you might have about studying at Newcastle and studying psychology at Newcastle. And in order to do this, we've prepared a short presentation where we'll try and address some of the main points of studying psychology at Newcastle. So it'll take us about 10-15 minutes. And then we'll hand over to you. You have the chat function, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So to start off, let's go to the presentation. Takes a while. Okay, it should show up in a second on the screen, the PowerPoint slides. I think the first thing to say about Newcastle is that we have we're very proud of our city. Newcastle, as you probably know, is in the northeast of England, right on the coast. It's a fairly compact city, but nevertheless very cosmopolitan. So here are some pictures of our lovely coastline. You can see beaches, Tynemouth and further up north. And on a sunny day, there's a lot of stuff happening there. But we also have many castles, lighthouses, lovely churches, a lot of historic buildings all around the area. It's an area of outstanding natural beauty outside of Newcastle. Within the city itself, we have a very rich cultural life. Newcastle is famous for its nightlife. For its concert halls, for its bridges. We have many lovely architectural landmarks, and concerts, theatre, and so forth. So it's I think our students really like it. What do you like about Newcastle, guys?
I enjoy the many concert venues because I do go to private concerts.
As a student, I enjoy that it's convenient and a cheap city to live, but it doesn't sacrifice any of its modern nature to be so.
So one thing is that it's very easy to walk everywhere. The city campus is right in the city center, so it's very convenient. You can pretty much get anywhere on foot within Newcastle. Okay, well, do ask us any questions about the city if you have any later on, but let's get to the matter at hand, which is psychology. Now, you've signed up for psychology, you applied for a psychology degree, so you probably know what psychology is, but just to kind of get us back on the same level, let's just quickly run over what is the definition of psychology. Well, it's the scientific investigation of mind and behavior, as you know. In other words, it's the study of how humans and other animals interact with each other, how they think, how they act. So it's really focusing on behavior. I think important to emphasize is that at Newcastle we really focus on the science of psychology, the biology, the genes, the genetic influences, and how the brain works. So this is something to remember. We are located within the university in the Faculty of Medical Sciences, and therefore a lot of the medical research influences the research we do in psychology. Okay, at Newcastle there are two major centres in which psychology happens, both the teaching as well as the research. So the first picture here is the Ridley Building, and psychology at the moment has 2 floors on that. Lecture theatres and teaching labs are there, and most of the teaching staff offices. We'll spend quite some time here. The second building here, this is the medical faculty, the medical school, and much of our research of ours and our colleagues happens in the Henry Wellcome building, which is this small part here. This is the Institute of Neuroscience, where most of the psychological research happens. Now, at Newcastle, We conduct research in all areas of psychology, but we're particularly focused on three major broad areas, which I'll just go over now. The first is visual neuroscience. So that is the understanding how stimuli in the environment get mapped onto our nervous system. Here you can see a photo of a scene in the environment, and we use eye trackers, for instance, to see how our eyes move and look at the various parts of a picture. And then through neural scanning, we would look at how this translates into the visual pathways. And that's a large area of research, and that feeds into some of the teaching that you get in the degree program. Second large area of research and practice at Newcastle is clinical and forensic psychology. We have a very established school of clinical psychology where we train clinical psychologists. So this is postgraduate, on a postgraduate level, but many of the teaching also trickles through into the undergraduate degree, of course. So both the clinical trainees as well as the lecturers teach on our undergraduate program. Forensic psychology is also very big at Newcastle. We have now state-of-the-art forensic laboratory there and many connections to forensic practice. Here's a picture of our head of school, Professor Gwyneth Doherty-Smeaton, signing a collaboration with the Norwegian police in order to do collaborative research and investigations. So both clinical and forensic psychology is very popular with our undergraduate students, and the students here benefit from expertise at both professional and research level. The last area of research that I want to mention briefly is evolutionary explanations of behavior. We have a strong research team in evolutionary psychology and behavioral ecology, where we investigate questions of how our brain and our evolutionary history affects behavior today. Here's just an example of some of this research that has been done in the Institute of Neuroscience. If you look at the picture, you can see different stimuli, flowers and eyes. And the rationale of this experiment was that if we feel observed, even if it's just through pictures of eyes, we behave more pro-socially than when we're not observed, or we don't feel observed. You can read all about this research. It's been gotten quite a lot of media attention, but I'll just stop here and carry on with the presentation. So, what is studying psychology like? Well, first of all, much of what the undergraduate program benefits from is this studying with active internationally renowned researchers. But as I've already mentioned, psychology is treated as an experimental science, and this means there's a lot more lab work and a lot more statistical work than students expect. Was this your experience when you?
I didn't expect having so much like biological based psychology and statistics with it, but it's not that bad and it's quite bearable.
Okay, good, that is bearable.
It's definitely more hands-on when you're actually conducting the experiments with little guidance, of course, but largely the work is done by you, and this is definitely a different step up from what you may be used to. And it may seem difficult at first, but it's really just getting your bearings at first, and it will come gradually.
So we'll definitely support you through the training and becoming a psychologist, and that means intense training in experimental methods and statistical investigations. The other major point I'd like to make about what studying psychology is like is that behavior is studied at all levels. So this means that the degree is hugely diverse. While all of the levels share a scientific approach, we still look at social, cognitive, evolutionary levels of analysis, and in that way you can play to your strengths and your interests. The degree is very varied, and we'll go into this variation throughout the talk. So I'll hand over to my colleague Amy now to run you through how the degree program works.
Hi there, yeah. So as Patrick said, I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about the actual degree and the sorts of things that you'll be studying. So as you're aware, the degree runs over 3 years, so stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3. You probably know as well by now that we also have the option to do an additional year with a professional placement between stage 2 and stage 3. but I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. Across the 3 years, there are 3 strands to the content that we'll cover. So the red arrows that you can see along the top refer to the psychological content that you'll learn about. And at stage 1, this is really covering the foundations. So you'll learn about core areas in psychology. So we'll cover developmental, social, biological, individual differences, amongst others. But these will give you the building blocks that you need as you go through the degree programme and begin to have more specialisation into areas of psychology that interest you. So to that end, at stage 2, again, you will cover some core areas, some compulsory areas of psychology, but you'll also have a little bit of choice. So you have about 40 credits of your 120 that you can choose from a number of modules that allow you to start to shape the degree in the way that you would like to. And then by the time you move on to stage 3, in terms of the psychological content modules, all of your credits here are optional. So 80 credits that you get to choose from your 120 in stage 3 are for you to choose the optional modules from the large range that we have in order to create a degree that reflects your particular interests. And I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the stage 3 options in a second. As you've already heard, a large component of the degree is also research methods and statistics. This is because what psychologists do when they are not perhaps professional psychologists is research, and everything that professional psychologists do are based on research findings. So it's a really important skill, a really important part of the programme for you to learn about. At stage 1, again, this is quite basic. This is building the foundations. This is where you'll learn some of the kind of hand calculations behind things, and it's where you'll start to think about what's the appropriate research methods or analysis for the different types of research designs that you would have. We build on this in stage 2, but stage 2 is much more about encouraging you to be an independent researcher. We're attempting to prepare you for your empirical project in stage 3. So it's much more about working part of a research team under the supervision of a member of staff, whereby you have to be responsible for making some of the decisions yourself. So that when you get to stage 3 and you get the opportunity to conduct your own empirical research project, you are competent and capable of carrying that out. And you'll get the opportunity there to work with a member of staff in a particular area that interests you to conduct your own unique piece of research. The other strand to the programme, the yellow arrows, refer to professional and academic skills that you learn across the programme. So at stage 1, this is about developing things like essay writing skills, presentation skills, but also learning about referencing, about plagiarism, about scientific communication. We build on that in stage 2, but with a little bit more focus on skills that are particularly appropriate for your professional development. So thinking about ethics, but also thinking about skills in terms of your career development. And again, that's built on further in stage 3 with the professional skills module, where it becomes really about preparing you for your career beyond psychology. So you'll do some things around CV writing and other things like that. So as I mentioned before, stage 3 is about having lots of optional choice in terms of the modules that you pick. There's just a very small selection on the screen here: evolution and behaviour, the damaged brain, face perception, the psychology of religion, consumer psychology and eating disorders. Vito, you're about to move into stage 3 and pick your modules. What are you thinking about doing?
So from what's not included there, for semester 1 of stage 3, I'm thinking of doing learning and educational psychology, and for semester 2, I'm thinking of doing developmental disorders.
And this is because of a particular career you're hoping to have when you finish, is it?
Yes.
Excellent. So we're really keen to encourage you to think about the professional pathway or the route that you want to take once you graduate, and having this option at stage 3 allows you to shape the degree and pick modules that are going to support you in the career that you'd like to have when you finish. As I mentioned before, we have a 4-year degree programme, which includes doing an optional year between stage 2 and stage 3, where you will be able to do a professional placement. Now, you do need to get an average in stage 1 of 65 or above, and we can't guarantee a placement for everybody that wants one, although we are working on having a large range of placements. Our current portfolio includes placements that reflect our professional pathways of clinical and forensic psychology. So we have placements within the NHS, and for those of people that are interested in a clinical pathway, we have placements within the prison service and Northumbria Police, for anybody that's interested in pursuing a forensic psychology pathway. And those people that are interested in a research pathway, we have placements within our research institute, so the Institute of Neuroscience, the Institute of Health and Society. It's also possible to pursue other professional placements. As I said, we've got a broad range and we're constantly adding to them, but it's also possible for you to source your own placements. If there's something that you're particularly interested in and the placement meets some criteria that we've got, in theory you will be able to do a placement that way as well. So as I mentioned, something that we're really proud of within the School of Psychology is our professional pathways. And I said one of those professional pathways, for example, might be a clinical pathway. So if you are interested in pursuing finally the doctorate in clinical psychology that we have within Newcastle, it's been running for over 50 years, here's how you might think about selecting options within your degree and beyond to get there. So you could pick stage 2 modules, such as abnormal and clinical psychology, which are delivered by members of the doctorate in clinical psychology. You then may pursue a professional placement within the NHS and do an optional year. And then returning to the third year of your degree, you may work with perhaps somebody that works on a clinical doctorate for your empirical project and pursue a project in that area. And on completion of your degree, you might think about coming back to study with us on the MSc Foundations in Clinical Health Psychology. This would prepare you really well to pursue a career within the realm of clinical psychology, but it might involve coming back to do some more training. So we run training in psychological therapy, so high and low intensity psychological therapy training. And then this could lead to some work at practice as an assistant psychologist before you return to us to pursue the doctorate in clinical psychology, which is a 3-year programme here. Okay, but do feel free to ask lots of questions about the ins and outs of the programme. I'm going to hand back to Patrick now to tell you a little bit more about the career side of things.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Amy. Right, I see there's quite a few questions coming in. We'll come to that in a second. I just wanted to say, just to finish off the presentation, something about what you can do with psychology after you graduate. So as Amy said, we have real strong commitment to helping you on your professional pathways, and that means both for if you are intending to become a professional psychologist, such as a clinical psychologist, forensic, occupational, etc., but also if you want to go into a different career. You may know this statistic, and about 20% of graduates across the UK in psychology go on to do professional psychology, and 80% go into other careers. So what kind of careers do people do? That's one question that we'll try and address with this slide, but also what support can we give you? So once you've finished with your BSc in psychology, the range of professional psychological careers include clinical psychology, occupational, educational, health, and so forth. So there's quite a set a panel of careers that you can go to in professional psychology. Other careers that graduates of Newcastle have done is things like teaching, social work, marketing, market research, careers guidance, accounting, even business psychology is a very employable degree because you get both the numeracy as well as more discursive skills throughout in your training. Now, how would you go about going into these careers? Well, becoming a professional psychologist usually includes postgraduate study, especially if you're going into the real clinical psychology. You need to work as an assistant psychologist for a year or two and then apply for the doctorate in clinical psychology, or maybe do a master's in clinical psychology or forensic. If you go into other careers, that usually also includes further study. So if you wanted to go into teaching, you would do a teaching master's in teaching. But for some careers, you can go straight directly into that. Maybe go join a graduate training scheme in a company, and so forth. We're pretty proud of how our graduates are doing. I think for the last set of graduates, about 89% were in either further study or in full-time employment 6 months after they graduated. So our work is paying off. People are getting the jobs they want and the professional pathways that they want, it seems. Okay. Now, here's some information on student life. Of course, huge study is all well and good, but a lot of the time at university you spend with other activities than just related to, well, in our case, psychology. And of course, the kind of activities you can do as a student are hugely diverse. Newcastle, I've already spoken about the activities you can do in the city, but also as a student, what are the kind of things you can do, extracurricular stuff? So, Vito, Haley, do you have any comments on the kind of things you can do as a student in Newcastle?
Well, I volunteer currently at Desmond Library, and I'm also in the student-run orchestra here at Newcastle. So there are a lot of societies that we can join, and there's a lot of volunteering opportunities and other things that we can do as well.
Excellent. Well, volunteering is a really important thing. It helps you get the kind of extra skills on your CV that show that you go above and beyond just the degree program. I think like volunteering at a library is great for skills and various. Might also help you with your degree.
Yeah, hopefully.
Vito?
Well, there's actually quite a lot of opportunities that come about just being a student there if you just listen about and come about. So one of the volunteering opportunities that I've done is being a research assistant for ASD research in Newcastle here, which was actually promoted by the School of Psychology. So there's a lot of those that come by, and so if you do just listen to the opportunities that they promote there, it's very easy to get into these. I'm also part of the core group of PsychoSoc, and we do plan a lot of events that center around trying to help students become better, not only as psychologists, but just better as people and to get to know others and become acclimatized to just life in general, social life, educational life, and different aspects of that. And what I'm trying to get across here with these points is that there are a lot of opportunities to help you become better students, better people, and it's not that hard to get to them.
PsychoSoc is the Psychology Society. Did you go on a trip this year?
We did actually go to 2 trips, one local trip and one trip abroad. Our local trip was in Edinburgh, which was very close by and it was very cheap. So I do recommend that people next year, if you're thinking about going to that. The other trip that we did abroad was to Budapest, and we did really get a lot of good feedback on that. And so I do also recommend that. Being part of societies itself opens up a lot of more opportunities in itself as well. So I do recommend just exploring those.
This year, PsychoSoc is running the Great North Run, very big, famous half marathon, and they've signed some of us up as well. So I'll be running the Great North Run this year. Great, but it's great fun, all for a good cause, for charity. So I guess the point is that there's a lot of extracurricular things to be doing at Newcastle. There's both, as part of the university or outside of the university. Student life is hugely diverse. There's websites on that show you some of there's an Instagram page on various things people do who study at Newcastle across the various degree programs. Okay, then I think let's wrap up the presentation. Why is Newcastle University a good place to study? Why should you choose Newcastle? I've got a few points I can to summarize, but why did you guys choose Newcastle and Newcastle University?
I chose Newcastle because their psychology program was quite good, and I also wanted to have a degree that was a lot more specialized into something I wanted to study compared to from my country, the way university is. It's a lot broad, so you wouldn't be just studying psychology, you would be studying other subject areas like history and other things, and I wasn't quite interested in that, so that's one of the reasons why I chose the UK and Newcastle University.
It actually started about as word of mouth from one of my university advisors back in my 6th form, who said that Newcastle was very well known for research in its sciences. And this was a very important fact for me, just because even if I was just picking one course, I wanted to know that I had a lot of options in general to explore the other sciences and research, and that would be available to me. And I'm glad to say that I do have all these options to explore from. Just because I'm in psychology doesn't mean I can't explore other course material. It's very accessible to all undergraduate students.
Excellent. Well, that's kind of says it all. So just to summarize some of the kind of points we made, and to sell Newcastle as a good place to study, you can look this up yourself. You look at league tables and so forth. We have a good academic status and reputation, dedicated members of staff who can research their area of interest. Many of our researchers are internationally known, either through their research or through their educational commitment. And I think this is one thing to highlight at Newcastle University. It's not just that you'll be learning from people who are international researchers and mainly focus on their research. We have a strong dedication to undergraduate education. We do research in undergraduate education, and we have a team of both international psychological researchers, but also educators who are dedicated and whose main job is to train you guys. The rationale of our teaching is through research-led teaching. Everybody, both the educators as well as the researchers, every member of staff is engaged in research, and our teaching is research-led, so we try and stay on the cutting edge of the field. And we are very committed to graduate employability. The whole point of the degree is that you leave here with the opportunity and the skills and the training to go into that career that you want to do, be it in psychology or outside of psychology. And again, you can look up the various league tables which show our graduate employability statistics, which are very favorable. Okay, so I think that's enough about that. There's quite a few questions coming through, so we'll go to the questions now. Just in case, I'll just leave this slide up. If you have any questions that are not answered today, or have anything that pops into your head after the webinar, here are my email. Here's my email and our contact details. Well, thanks very much for your patience through the presentation. And I think we'll go to some of the questions now that you've been asking. Right, I'll go back to the start. I think the first question coming through is, I was wondering what will happen if I don't get the grades I need. Okay, and I think that's a question I can field. The way university admissions works is that we make you an offer based on the grades or your predicted grades. So if you got an offer of, say, A, B, then we expect you to get these grades. If you don't, for whatever reason, don't get the grades you need, there are some things you may want to consider. One potential thing to go is to see if we go into clearing, where in clearing offers tend to be reduced. However, I have to say it's unlikely that we will go into clearing this year because we have a large number of applicants. The other option would be, although probably applications for the summer school have closed by now, would be to go through the partner summer school. Partner summer school is best if you have a look at the website whether your school is eligible for this. There's not only a school, it also depends on other things. It's a number of factors. If you're eligible for the partner scheme, then there's ways that you would have to come to a summer school, and that would give you the chance to enter university with a slightly reduced offer. I guess my advice would be to try and get the grades that you need. That's the surest way of getting into university. Okay, I hope I answered that one to satisfaction. Now, next question was, is there any revision work I will need to complete before I start the course? Amy, what do you think?
There's nothing specific that we recommend, but I don't think that it would hurt to I think showing an interest in the subject and perhaps reading around the subject area is good for anybody. I think that it prepares you for the opportunity to be more involved, so asking questions in lectures and those sorts of things. But no, we don't have a requirement that you do any before you come, but it's certainly not a bad thing to be thinking about reading beyond what you've known already before you come. What
Do
would
you
you
have-
two say?
Do you have any recommendations?
I
2 years in, 1 year in?
I'd say that you might, if you're not like quite strong in biology, or if you have like no idea in just basic biology, I think you should like take a look at that, because it would help you with a lot of the first year modules. Yeah.
I think that's good advice. Yeah.
Do you think you could get that from the stage 1 recommended textbook, so we could let people know what the stage 1 recommended textbook is, and would that cover the biology that you need?
Yeah. But I also just think just having, because there's just like a lot of like I guess basic biology stuff that if you haven't studied biology before, it'll take you longer to grasp certain concepts compared, but like the textbooks do cover them well, but it'll just be a lot easier and help you out, you know.
So I think what Haley's saying, that makes sense. I think that's taking the kind of the recommended reading, like and any university level introductory textbook, psychology is helpful. And there are also some very, very good books out on psychology that are more, that are on a very high level, but aimed at a kind of broad audience. Think of Steve Pinker, How the Mind Works, or David Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow. Those are kind of very popular. They're excellent books. They kind of cover a broad area of psychological research and are very accessible. These kind of texts would be really helpful to kind of get a good impression of what the subject is. I think the best kind of recommendation would be a first year textbook. Okay. The next question then. It looks like there's a lot to do in Newcastle. I've been coming from really far away, Hong Kong, and I'm a bit worried about traveling to a new country. Is Newcastle a safe place? Is it friendly? Okay. Just been to Hong Kong myself, and I share the worry about traveling and so forth. It's of course always daunting to come to a new place, especially when you're committing yourself to come for 3 years. So what do you think, guys? Is Newcastle a safe place? Is it friendly? How's your reception here?
Well, to start off with, for answering the question about safety, there are tons of initiatives with Northumbria Police to ensure the safety of students. There are various apps that are being released, and there are various initiatives that the police have done with, for example, taxi cab companies to ensure the safety of students, especially in night, where that would be a main concern. In terms of the friendliness, well, you don't hear it end really with how northern folk, especially in Newcastle, pride themselves on their warmth and friendliness towards any folk in general.
Okay. I think Newcastle has a reputation of Geordies, as the locals in Newcastle are called, of being extremely friendly, very welcoming people. At least that was my experience. I'm not from Newcastle originally, but I've lived here for nearly 20 years. They're very, very friendly people. I guess I can, in terms of safety, I mean, you have to take that relative. Every city has its dangers. That will be same in Hong Kong, London, but relatively speaking, I would say Newcastle is a very safe place compared to other cities of its size. Anything else?
Yeah, I think that you've both mentioned points that are really important. I think the fact that public transport is so good helps to make the city really safe. It's very, very easy to get about, and as we said before, it's very compact, so most places are in walking distance, but you can hop on the metro and be somewhere in 2 or 3 minutes, and that runs till relatively late at night and starts quite early in the morning. And as Vito said, we have relationships with local taxi firms whereby if you ran out of money and you needed to get home, you could leave your student card as payment for the taxi and then be able to go and pick your student card up and pay the next day or pay within the next couple of days. So yes, I think that not only is it a relatively safe city anyway, but we're engaged with the local community to help make it safer.
I guess one more thing that might help in this context is that we have a very large community of international students at Newcastle. So that both in terms of the student union, there's different societies that are where, like the International Society, for instance, where students come together from different countries. And of course, so there's a kind of very multicultural international flair to both the city and the university that'll try and integrate and try and make you feel very, very welcome. Okay, I think that covers most of it. If you have more concerns or questions about that, please let them come. I'll just carry on to the next question in the meantime. A question on placements. Will I receive help when trying to secure a placement? Well, I think the easy answer is yes. It depends on what kind of placement you're doing. In terms of the placements that Amy was talking about, the professional placements, there are roughly 20-ish, 25 placements that we offer. And you have to apply to them as if you would apply to a job. But beyond the professional placements that we offer in the School of Psychology, Newcastle University offers placements across the board for everybody. So everybody who wants to do a placement will be able to do that. And those work placements you will get a lot of support in finding one if you want to go and find something, say not in professional psychology, but would like to do a placement, say in a web design firm or in a school or such like. There will be quite substantial support from the career service as well as the school to help you find a placement that is appropriate. Okay, anyone of you doing a placement? Well, thinking about it?
I'm thinking of it.
Yeah, you're thinking about it.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who are going on to do placements, and I can guarantee to you guys that they have been receiving a lot of support in terms of like finance, in terms of other stuff as well, like register, and there's a dedicated team for placements just so that they can help them, and I wouldn't worry about that quite yet because it's in safe hands.
Yeah, that's we've got a dedicated placement tutor who's there to see everybody through the process and prepare you. I think that's where the professional skills ties into things as well. So that the learning about presentation skills, the learning about career development and CV writing and job applications and those sorts of things should help. It's probably worth pointing out as well, above and beyond the professional placement year and the work experience placement year that Patrick mentioned then, the career development modules that we have as options at stage 2 and stage 3 that also provide another opportunity to get kind of work experience or placements as part of a module. So you'd get credits for doing that. So if you didn't want to do a full year out, you can still get some of the same experience within the programme. So it's worth looking into too.
Getting some kind of work experience during your 3 years here, or 4 years if you're doing a full-on placement, is really, really good. It's really, getting some direct experience of how work works and helps in many ways. I mean, even if it's just about finding out what you don't want to do, but also just getting these skills and networking with people in various services and so forth is hugely beneficial. So we'll try and, I know, through the personal tutor system, through your personal tutor at university, through the career service and through your module leaders, we try and give you both inspiration as well as support in terms of finding the right kind of path to take in terms of volunteering and work experience. Okay. Right. Let's see what do we have next. How will we be examined? Okay. Amy, do you want to?
Yes. So at stage 1, most of the assessment are multiple choice exams. So you would have an exam at the end of the module, normally about an hour and a half long, about 90 questions. There is one essay exam and one coursework essay at stage 1 as well, and then for research methods there are some practical reports. As you move into stage 2, most of the content modules are assessed by a combination of MCQ exam and essay exam, again practical research reports and some coursework essays as well. And then in stage 3 it is predominantly essay exams and coursework essays. So you can see that as the programme becomes more in depth, the type of assessment that you've got is designed to tap into that. So at stage 1 it's about breadth of knowledge. As you move through into stage 2 and stage 3 it becomes more about depth of knowledge, so the assessment reflects that. But we've got some quite novel assessment methods as well. So there are some kind of presentations involved. But for example, in my stage 3 module, consumer psychology, you get the opportunity to design an advertising and marketing strategy. So something quite different. And I know that for forensic, there is eating with weight disorders. They do functional skills analysis. Is that the right name of the assessment? But yes, there are some different ways that you're assessed across the programme that are designed to reflect the skills and the content that you learn within the different modules. Does that reflect what you two have done so far?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Will I need to buy books before I start? I think I'll take that one. The easy answer is no. You don't need to buy any books before you start, other than what we just said earlier about reading as widely as possible. There's no requirement for you to buy books. We have, and I think I would recommend you wait until you actually come here and get the reading lists. We have a number of secondhand book sales where older students sell their versions of the books for reduced price. We have some links to the local university book shop, Blackwell's, which there will be some deals there. And we have a very, very well-equipped library. So there's the question is, do you need to buy any books at all? Some people prefer having their own copy. Others feel that the kind of books that the copies that the library has are sufficient. And either is supported. So we're not going to force you to buy any books. Don't worry. Having said that, I think it does make a big difference if you can read widely before coming here, like as we said earlier on. Did you guys buy any books before you started?
No.
Okay, so there you go. How will lectures be held? Do they get recorded? Do we get the PowerPoints before or after, etc.? Do you guys want to say something about your experience with lectures and lecture recordings and what have you?
It can be very variable from what I've learned. So in terms of these questions, I take it with a grain of salt is what I'd say, because some lecturers have a preferred style of teaching where they would release some teaching materials beforehand, while some don't release it till after the lecture has occurred. So it really does depend on the lecture that you get. So what I'd say is just be prepared for different types of materials to be released before, after, and be accessible depending on the module and the module leader, of course.
And there's a rationale behind that. Of course, as you'll expect at university, there are different styles of teaching, as Vito has said. So some colleagues prefer chalk and talk on a blackboard, and others prefer PowerPoints. Now, if somebody does chalk and talk, there's no way you can release PowerPoints or release that recording beforehand. But we do encourage every colleague to release lecture notes and so forth in some form or another. In terms of lecture recordings, we record a fair, about 80% of our lectures are recorded. When the recordings will be released is dependent on the module leader. There are different rationales of releasing them. Some like to use these recordings more for revision, and others feel that the recordings can be released straight after. So as Vito says, it's very dependent on the module leader, and they will give you the exact exact strategy for that. We have a dedicated virtual learning environment. In our case, it's called Blackboard, and that gives you all of the lecture materials that you will need, course outlines, module outlines, the various papers that you may need to read, assessments, and so forth. Anything else in terms of recap?
Also, some of the lectures, they use Omnia, which is like an interactive multiple choice. So sometimes during the lectures or after, they'll have like these little MCQ questions that you could answer, and it sort of helps with your revision, and you can kind of see what type of question could be on the exams or not. So that's quite good.
And it helps us break up the lectures a bit as well, and kind of interact with the students by using these response indicators. Okay, great. Let's see. I think there was a question on lectures. Maybe we can take that one. One question: do you share lecture slides after the lecture? So I think we addressed this. So most lecturers who use PowerPoint share their slides either by putting them up before the lecture, or if they feel it's more better for attention to after the lecture. But definitely you will get them. I'm just seeing if there's another question on lectures that we can address right here. Okay. No. Let's go back up to the questions. How many hours of teaching are there in first year, and can you tell me more about the vacation scholarship scheme? Okay, Amy, do you want to talk about the hours?
So there's about 15 hours of contact teaching a week. Obviously, it depends slightly through the programme what modules you pick. It might differ, but at stage 1, it's about 15 contact hours. As a rule of thumb, the university attributes 100 hours of student study to every 10 credits. So if, for example, you have 2 hours of lectures a week for 12 weeks, that's 24 hours of contact time. You would be expected to be engaged in some sort of additional study for the remaining 76 hours. So that might be independent reading, that might be exam preparation, that might be guided study. So you might be given some work by the lecturer to do in that time. But so contact hours about 15 a week. Is that right?
Yeah.
And that's vacation scholarship.
Yes.
Take that bit.
Sure. The vacation scholarship scheme, we have different models there. It usually, are you doing a vacation scholarship?
Yes, I am.
Oh, well, excellent. Vito, why don't you say something about the...
So just as a quick overview, the vacation scholarship scheme that I applied for was in the Institute of Neuroscience, which has close ties to the School of Psychology, and I'm working with Anya Hurlbert in the school on a visual neuroscience project there in terms of depth perception and cognition. So the whole process of a research scholarship scheme has to do with proposing a project which your supervisor will help you with, and you submitting it to the School of Psychology and to the school in general and the board, and they'll examine it and they'll either approve it and give it a grading based on priority and how much this can actually contribute to research in the university. So the whole intent of this vacation scholarship program is to get very good students that the university judge involved in the research before they graduate and get them hands-on experience in the research that the university is getting involved in. So if you're very interested in research and the practices that go on in the lab, then I do recommend looking into that as well.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Vito. It's always better to hear from somebody actually doing the scheme. We offer quite a broad variety of research projects in this, and the basic idea is that you, as Vito said, you get aligned with a supervisor and do extra credits or extra work during the holidays. And that counts towards this getting extra skills and extra experience that we spoke about earlier. And there's also information on the website if you want to know more about that. Okay, student accommodation. What is the student accommodation like? Is it close to the psychology department? Okay, so as a general, I think my colleague Felicity has already sent you the link to the accommodation website, and that gives you all of the various different accommodations that the university offers. I think important to say is there's a few things. First off, if you accept a place in Newcastle, you're guaranteed university accommodation for the first year. And then secondly, there's a whole diversity of accommodation that are a different distance from the university. So you can look at that, and they have different facilities, and there's different versions of that. You can see all of those at the website, but in order to give you a flavor, I'll hand over to the students because they'll have the most recent experience of living in university accommodation. Haley, you're in stage 1.
Yeah, I'm staying in Barker House, and I think it's privately run, but it's not that far from uni, but it's like a 20-minute walk, and it's quite far from the med school and the psychology, but a lot of the accommodation on like that side of Newcastle, the med school is always a bit far unless you're in like Castle Leases or like the View or the Verde. But Barker House is quite quiet, and it's good for like studying because there's also a lot of postgrads there, so it's not that loud. But yeah.
Okay, excellent. Where did you stay in first year?
I stayed in St. Mary's, which is in Fenham, and it's quite a bit away, but if you're worried about distance, there's always a dedicated bus service that runs in the morning and during the evening to get students to the accommodation and to the university. So that's very accessible, and distance really shouldn't be a problem for most students in this case. And it is a cheap and good quality accommodation as well.
Okay, so I guess looking at the website, there's, the university accommodation caters to all tastes. So if distance to the psychology department is an issue for you, there are plenty that are very, very close. You mentioned Castle Leases. That's literally 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes away from the on foot from the university. There's a new one being built just next to the sports center, which is literally in the midst of the medical faculty. Not sure what the new one's called, but they'll be on the website. It used to be called Ricky Road, very famous student accommodation, but now there's been a new complex is being built there. So I guess the bottom line is that have a look at the website and contact the accommodations team, who will be very happy to help you out and give you advice on that. Okay. Right. How are we for time, folks? Okay, let's see if we can answer some more questions, get through all of these. The starting date of the course. So the course starts, I think, this year on the 21st of September. I might be wrong. It's definitely end of September, beginning of October. The exact starting date will be on the website on communications you get from the university. Maybe Felicity will send you the exact date from the website and a link. Do many students have jobs lined up when they graduate? Well, I mentioned earlier that we have a high rate of graduate employment, but so I think the exact statistic was about 89%. 6 months after graduating, were either in further study or in full-time employment. So the prospects look pretty good. Obviously, it's really also up to your motivation, your career planning, and so forth. And I think it's important to say that we'll try as educators and as the universities give you all the support you need to know your next steps right after graduation. I think most of our students are pretty satisfied with that. At least from my perspective, we do put a lot of work in trying to kind of, the way university and the higher education is going this day, being employable is top of the list of things you want from a degree. So a lot of our efforts is in training and supporting you in finding the job you want at the end of this. Okay, how many students are in each year? That's the kind of rough. So there's some fluctuation, but on average you could expect about 150 per year. This will change when you go to final year, in terms of where in the final year you have complete choice of modules, and so the numbers of students in each module fluctuates widely because some modules are more popular than others. No module is capped, so everybody can take any module they want, at least in the psychology modules. But some modules will have only 10 students, and some modules will have 200. That's about the variance here. What sort of placements are available to students? Next question. Well, we spoke about some placements already, professional placements. In psychology, that means you could work in the NHS if you do a clinical placement, working together with a clinical psychologist and a clinical team and working on mental health issues. Forensic placements, where you work either in the prison service or as part of a police investigation team, or as part of research in so the Northumbria police, for instance, or Norwegian police. There's certain placements available. And in research placements, that would be similar to what Vito is doing as a vacation scholarship, but the research placements would be for a full year, working as research assistant in the Institute of Neuroscience. Beyond that, there are all sorts of placements available. These are more the kind of work experience or work placements you can get via the career service, and they could be anything from assisting in a web design firm, working in a school as a teaching assistant, and so forth. So the possibilities are endless in terms of what sort of placements are available, and much of those work placements will be dependent on where you go and what you want to do. In terms of the professional placements, they're mainly focused on clinical and forensic and research in psychology. Okay. So, sport facilities. What are the sport facilities like on campus? Which sports can I get involved with? Okay. So, first off, the sports facilities are quite extensive. There's a huge gym that you can, again, look up on the website. I mean, Felicity has put the website up. In terms of students, there's what kind of sports you can get involved in. That's, again, hugely diverse. Any of you involved in any sports?
No.
Sports societies? Are you?
Not sports societies in general, but the university does have a lot of initiatives to help, like accommodation sports, or help people who aren't in the society itself set up their own sports teams and participate in local tournaments. So even if you aren't in part of a society itself, the university can still facilitate sport opportunities for you.
Great, yeah.
And there's the famous Stan Calvert Cup, which is the when Newcastle University takes on Northumbria University, and there's great rivalry between the two cities' universities. Very friendly rivalry, but there's lots of sports going on within the university you can get involved with.
Yeah. So have a look at the website to if there's any particular sports you're interested in. Okay, I think we're kind of running out of time now. So do we have time for one more question? Okay, we'll try one more. What facilities do you have in relation to disability support? Okay, so that's very high on our agenda. So we have a student well-being service that specializes on assessing and working with the academic schools to help give you all of the disability support you need. We work very closely with them. So dependent on your individual needs, a plan will be made and a support recommendation will be made that will allow you all sorts of academic adjustments that are fitting to, well, whatever disability that might be. So so that could be is very customized and very specific. It can range from having more time in exams to having your exams in individual settings. It may involve things like having a scribe, having extra access to recordings and so forth. So it's really dependent on what the needs of the individual are. And the student well-being service, well, there's trained professionals in making these recommendations. So I think that's probably what I want to say. If there's further information on the disability support website if you want to have a look at that. Okay, I think that's all we have time for today. If you have any further questions, please feel free to email me, and if I can't answer it, I'll send it on to my colleagues or the students if there's anything that you want to know. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you Well, we'll see you in September, at least some of you. Okay. Right. Thanks.